headed to yeah, that's probably about
Aaron, your wife's here.
I've invaded the class. I just need the key to the vehicle. Nothing more awkward than walking into all this class.
I was on plane today, sorry. Let me call.
Gentlemen, we are going to get started tonight. Let me first of all just say welcome. This is an excellent group of men to be standing in front of. And the reason I know I'm in the right place is I feel out of my league already. So we want to start off first and foremost by communicating what's going on in here. Myself, my name is Kevin Peters. If we have not met, on staff here is one of the associate ministers, Minister of Spiritual Formation here at the park. And my friends Drew Harris and Dale Brzee and I have been working on this class along with a number of other men and preparing this for a class that will lead us to be men of spiritual leadership. This world, this church, this city needs men who can be looked to for spiritual leadership. And that is different than business savvy with a generically Judeo-Christian worldview. We understand the difference there? This church, this city, this world needs men who are able to lead with the power of God, the prompting of the Holy Spirit, the example of Christ. This church needs men who can be looked to for spiritual leadership, and that does not happen on accident. So you guys are here tonight because that process of becoming men who can be looked to for spiritual leadership does not happen on accident. And so we have created this class to be something that helps us all grow towards that. I'm grateful to be among you tonight and to be a part of this whole thing. This thing is much bigger than any one of us, but we've worked hard and prayed hard for this. I'm going to turn it over to Drew for some expectations, and then Dale is going to introduce our speaker for the night. What's going on?
Wow, this is cool. Seeing you guys out here tonight. This has been a long time working on this together with Kevin and Dale. And I just wanted to kind of set what the expectations are and tell a little bit about this. So Wednesday nights, we'll all meet here together as a large group of men. And every Wednesday night, there will be a speaker who will present some information about leadership, some of their personal testimony, some of their personal stuff, their own perspective on that, and Bible, of course, to go along with it. And then during the week, we encourage you, if you are not already part of a small group, to get with us and Kevin, Dale, or myself, and let us know, because it is expected that you, if you're going to participate in this, it's a 6-month-long minimum commitment. If it's not the right time, that's okay. If it's not the right thing for you, that's okay. But, you know, if you come late, this stuff was going to be on YouTube, so you can catch up. But you need to be a part of a small group, because outside of class, once a week, small groups are meeting so that we can mentor one another and sharpen one another and help each other become the men that God designed us to be. The leaders in our homes, at churches, at work, the people that God designed us to be. And that's just some expectations. So you know, if you're going to participate, we want everybody to participate, but it is a commitment. So I just wanted to share that information. And then Dale, if you'll come up and introduce Allan.
All right, do I need to do this because we're recording?
Yes.
Okay. So I've got notes, and I just want to lay this out for you guys. There is no quick shortcut to being a man of God. It takes time and effort. And the question is, how do we recognize a spiritually mature person? And it's laid out in 1 Timothy 3 and Titus 1. And it's the qualifications for an elder. And of these 25 qualifications that are listed, 24 have to do with a man's reputation, his ethics, morality, temperament, habits, spiritual and psychological maturity. And the other one, the one of the 25, has to do with his ability to lead his own family. There is no mention of gifting or skill. I think what Paul did when he was talking to Timothy and Titus, he said, here are the characteristics. This is what a certain kind of man looks like. This is implied. Okay? The 25, which I'll lay out to you, and then I'll come back to the first one. Every time that it's mentioned twice in Timothy or Titus, I'll do this. Above reproach, the husband of one wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not given to drunkenness, not violent, gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must manage his own family well. His children must obey him with proper respect. Not a recent convert. Have a good reputation with outsiders. Blameless. Children are believers and not wild and disobedient. Not overbearing, not quick-tempered, not pursuing dishonest gain. Loves what is good. Upright, holy, disciplined, and hold firmly to sound doctrine and able to encourage and refute. So, what's the downside of living your life with those 25 things that would describe you if you never became an elder? There's no downside. This is what we all ought to strive for. And I got to tell you, I'm at 60 years old, I'm still working on this one. And you talk to any of your elders, and they're doing the same thing. This is a challenge that we all have in living our life. I think the capstone of the whole thing is above reproach. And if somebody could real quick get on your phone, what's the definition of reproach? Can y'all do that? Somebody real quick. Definition of reproach. Who's the quickest? Anybody? You got it?
address in such a way as to express disapproval or disappointment.
Disapproval or disappointment. So, for you guys, Matt, I've known you since you were a baby, okay? If you found out, and sorry guys, but we're going to deal with stuff like this. If you found out that I went to strip joints now, you would be disappointed, right? If you found out that I drink a six-pack while watching Cinemax every night, you'd be disappointed. I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out what this thing looks like. So that's the goal, is being above reproach. So we have a speaker who I believe is above reproach. He is our favorite coach, beloved in this city and in this church, and a man that I have benefited from his teaching when I have been sitting at his feet, and that man is Allan Trimble.
Well, thank you, Dale. That's a lot of pressure. My assistant tonight will be Brett LaBiche, so if we have technical difficulties, please blame him.
On the table.
Brett, on this particular slideshow, let's go back to it's the third slide. I think it's got the cartoon. I love to watch cartoons. No, go back. That one right there. Let's watch that one. Listen carefully, okay? This is
Ice Age.
Ice Age 2, I think, where the big Snopopolis guy is trying to rescue the little guy. Give me the good news, Brent.
I'm trying.
Okay, I'm taking that as I probably better have something to say. So when Drew and, I'll have to get my chair adjusted, sorry guys. When Drew and the gang called me and came up with this great idea, I was really excited because I love leadership. I kind of spent a great deal of my career trying to figure that out. As Dale mentioned, it's a process. And so as a football coach, I studied the Navy SEALs a lot. Not saying that they're great leaders, but they're really good at what they do, and that's killing people. They're very focused. It's hard to break them. They never lose their focus. And so today I was watching another one. Mitch came by today. We had a little barbecue. That's kind of a tradition. I know that's a shocker to you. But so I watched another one after he left. And you guys, if you're on Facebook, you've probably seen the guy. He's giving the commencement speech at the University of Texas. And it starts off about make your bed every day. Well, if you watch the full-length video, he talks about there's 8,000 people at that graduation. And he says if 8,000 of you will impact 10 people today, in 5 generations, you will touch 800 million people. And in 6 generations, you could impact the population of the whole world. 10 people, okay? So I am honored to be in front of you. Drew, when Drew asked me to help, I asked him if I could go first. Not because I want to be first, but because well, you know what, I may run out of gas. I may run out of air before I get to speak to you guys. But then, as I was driving over here a while ago, I'm going, well, that was stupid. I get to kick off an inaugural class in front of 60 guys who are the future of our church, of God's church. Wherever you are, I want to introduce. Right now, he's my favorite teammate, Charlie Kimes. And you know, a lot of you guys who have been around sports, a lot of being a really good coach is recruiting really good players. And so Charlie was my first pick because he makes me look good. He's the nicest, most servant-hearted guy I've ever been around. He is managing his recovery. Did you figure that out?
Nope.
Oh, good. Um, um, he's a great example. He's been helping me out through some really tough times. But Charlie, I appreciate you coming. I know that Nancy, and by the way, I got Charlie in trouble. He had been coming over to visit with me, and you know, he had some throat surgery, and he wasn't supposed to be talking. And so Charlie and I, his voice was sounding pretty good. So we thought, well, we'll just talk. Well, at the end of the day, his throat got sore. I sent him home, and his wife Nancy got ticked off. That's not true. But Charlie got grounded. So we're on limited speaking basis right now. So Charlie's here for support only. He will not be able to help me later. But Charlie, thank you for being here. I love you, and you are one of my heroes. I also noticed a few of you guys, your wives came by to check in on you a while ago. This is a man class, okay? And is this room a little uptight?
A little bit. They're not getting it.
All right, this is a man leadership class. So you guys, let's all breathe in, breathe out. So I'm sitting in front of the future leaders of God's church right here, wherever you're at, whether you're in your 20s or whether you're in your 70s. So if I was sitting in front of my team the very first day of the locker room, the most important thing I would try to let you know is that this environment right here that you're in is a family. As your head coach, I will let you know that your value to me comes from who you are and whose you are. Now, when I say that, I would also be looking around the room to see how many big linemen I have, how many fast guys I have. So I'd be evaluating you physically too. But here's the deal. This locker room that we're in right now has to be a safe, secure, trustworthy environment. You have to walk in here. By the way, I'm not vaping. That's another lesson on leadership. No juuling. But this environment has to be a place where you show up and you know you have value. So I'm sitting here looking at, I'll throw a few guys under the bus. Mitch is a great leader. Phil Smith's a great leader. Charlie Combs is a great leader. Lynn Manchin's a great leader. There's tons of them in here, okay? But every one of us are God's unique creation. None of us are the same. We are all shaped by our experiences that we've had, good and bad. God has given each and every one of us our own special set of gifts, and we're not alike. So when you enter in here, understand that you have something to bring to this party. Okay, when I was a young man, and I still am, I was a shirt swimmer, let's face it, all right? I was fat, Did you use the term shirt swimmer? Thank you, Tom, yes. I had no confidence. They said I was a pretty good athlete. I wrestled, I played football, all that stuff. But along my journey, I guess no one reminded me that I could be good. I was not overly confident. I didn't have a lot of great friends who would tell me what my talents were, who would encourage me. So in this room, you may be the most unconfident guy there is. You may be the most uncomfortable guy there is. You may be coming off a crappy divorce right now. You may have really goofed up. I'll bet you everybody in here has made a mistake or two, probably in the last 3 days. You may not be above reproach or beyond reproach, but here's the deal. Your journey has prepared you for this opportunity to share, to grow, and to help each other on this leadership journey. Many of you have a family. Many of you have wives. Many of you are in positions of leadership at work, wherever you might be. So I started off, I sent Drew like 73 slides about spiritual identity for tonight's lesson, okay? That was probably too many. That's one slide every 4 seconds. But I'm not going to use that tonight. I wanted to establish a climate in here. You guys don't know me. I mean, you know me as the guy on the sideline that yells and screams and all that stuff. But I wanted to, first of all, let you know that you add great value to what we're going to try to do. Wherever you are in your journey, you have something to offer. I would tell our JV guys, those skinnier guys, you know, that have to tape their socks up, that you can give me your best effort. Okay, I don't care how fast you are. I don't care how big you are. You can do your best. You can give it your best shot. So I'm going to evaluate you on your efforts. I'm not going to evaluate you on how many touchdowns you score or how many Bible verses you can quote. And you'll have to excuse me. Not only references I know are football, okay? So just get ready. So how do you create that environment? All right, I would hope that you would come here when you walk across the line. We talked about sideline football. When you walk across the line, I would hope that you're mentally prepared for what's going to go on here. I would hope you study up on some lessons. We'll be posting the lessons, emailing them out. We'll also have some small group interaction each week, hopefully. But I hope you'll put some time into it, because we have this really high-tech statement in my program that you'll be good at what you emphasize. You'll be good at what you work at. And leadership is a process. And wherever you are, you can start getting better. And I hope that you will, you know, so right now, one of your homework assignments is going to be, what are your goals for this class personally? What do you want to do? I remember the biggest, probably the biggest spiritual change up for me was our Friday morning Chick-fil-A Bible study. We started out a long time, not we, Midge and a few of them started it a long time ago. And I mean, I was raised in the church. My father was an elder in the church. But for the first 20, almost 30 years of my life, I didn't work at it. I just kind of let it come to me. And you can become more spiritual, letting your faith come to you. But you're not going to grow very fast. You have to connect and study and work at it. Because the more you take in, the more you focus on it, the more people you surround yourself with that are on the same journey, the more you're going to elevate your own faith and those around you. And that's when we create a faith team, okay? And I hope that that'll be your outlet. I've never been a part of anything like this, okay? I mean, like I said, I'm excited, and I'm anxious to see where it goes. Brett, what do you have for me?
Well, unfortunately, the video wasn't embedded in that PowerPoint.
Exciting.
So
Let's go. Let's open up the other PowerPoint, and we'll get started. So, if you guys would, let's open up with just some discussion. If you would right now on your life's journey, whether it's business or sports or whatever, would you think about it real quick and tell me, raise your hand if you have a good one, a leader who impacted your life the most. I suppose it could be good or bad, but if you could identify a guy or a person in your life that you thought, you know what, that guy knew what he was doing. That guy got more out of me. That guy elevated me. Would anybody share that with me? What, Lynn?
When I was about 24 years old, I went to work for a construction company, and one of the vice presidents was Allan. And first time I walked into the room, he wanted me to start brainstorming with him a solution that I was taking care of all the landscape, and we had a unique landscape problem. He wanted to brainstorm with me the solution of this problem. He didn't know what it was, but he thought the two of us together talking back and forth, and he would throw out these most ridiculous ideas, and invariably it would be one of those ideas that was the solution, and a very good solution. And it had a great impact on me. It just made me realize that what the most obvious answer to a problem often isn't the right answer. Sometimes you just got to dig deeper and work at it.
Okay. Somebody else. Steve?
Coach Larry Miller. He was my swim coach that believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself.
I think that's an awesome characteristic. Anybody else? Somebody just pops. Yeah, go ahead. I'll be right with you.
He doesn't pay me, I promise you that. It's Craig Loney. In 1998, was it? 9? A group of 4 couples, when Park Plaza was about 500 people, said, we want our own class. And we're told no. That class is now split 3 times, probably 250 families in it, and he said yes.
So the characteristic is open-mindedness or vision?
Yeah. Leadership, he said, yeah.
Okay.
Did it, took it, and it was great.
Mr. Cooper?
Mine was Mitch. Whenever my real dad left, when I was, I think I was like 1.5, my brother was just born. Me and my mom and my brother basically showed up at Park Plaza, and Mitch really helped integrate the family. And ever since I've been little, he's written me 1 or 2 letters a year and really just kept us involved. And yeah, man, and through youth ministry and all of that, and just weekly, he talks to me and keeps me going. Really taught me how to be a leader and how to keep people involved.
Beautiful. Thank you. Clint?
The program director when I was at LSU, orthodontics, was an old gentleman. He's passed away now, from India, and he was an orthodontist in India. And when he came over here in the 1970s, he said, I realized that I was never going to be taken seriously unless he went back to dental school and did 4 years of dental school and went back into residency and just redid it all again. And he said, I just knew I needed to do that to find a place here. And it just kind of taught me a good lesson of, sometimes the things that are required of us don't seem like the right direction, and sometimes it just seems like it's wrong, but sometimes it's better just to put your head down and just push on through and keep your eye on the prize at the end versus the work along the way.
Great example. Reese?
Well, many of you may know I worked with my dad till he retired here a couple of years ago. And when you're fighting with the IRS and all, probably one of the most important lessons, it doesn't matter how many times you fall down. What matters is how many times you get back up.
Great. Mental toughness. Somebody over here. We'll do 1 or 2 more. Yes?
Mine was Bobby Crenshaw. So growing up in a church, I was always a good kid, but always had a little bit of rebellion in me. And Bobby was that guy that was a little older than my father that built that friendship with me, that I could be held to a little better account by him than I could my own father, because of the friendship that he had given me and built with me.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to jump off right there. I think that's a great segue. My experience with coaching, I've played for, my first, I would say the guy who had the most influence on me in a good way was my high school coach, Ron Wolf. He's the first guy that built a relationship with me, that let me know that I was valuable for something besides my athletic ability or my lack of athletic ability. But he wanted me to be a better young man. He wanted to develop my character. He wanted me to learn all those characteristics of leadership. And for the first time in my entire athletic career, there was a guy that really motivated me. I mean, I love my sports, but this guy got to my heart. And that was the first, like, oh, wow, I get it now. In my coaching career, I worked for a guy, and I said this the other day on KRMG. I learned more about leadership and coaching from this guy than any other guy. However, it was more about what not to do and how to do it than any other guy I've ever been around. His path was completely strewn with people he had stepped on to elevate his career. He scared me to death. Every time he would open his mouth, I would just cry. I would jump. But I was young. I was aspiring. I was a hard worker. I was brought up in my house to respect your boss and do what he said. And so we worked, and I'll never forget. Come on in, brother. Whose team are you on, by the way?
Yours? No, Clint's.
Okay, just checking, because we're taking roll. And, the lesson on accountability, Dale, is one. But anyway, we are, good to have you, Troy. So we won the state championship in 1993. I was an offensive coordinator. And we had put in a lot of work. It was. Brett, would you push my glasses up? I feel like my dad. Thank you. And we worked very hard. In fact, we had our priorities all out of order. I spent way too much time away from family. I used motivation and coaching tactics that were not in the best interest of developing young men. It felt wrong the whole season. Just get that icky feeling that we were a lot of times using players. In that particular season, my boss had called some favors on teachers to not hold players accountable, rather just help them with their grades so that they would be eligible. I mean, I felt like I needed a shower. I mean, just gross. I did love my kids. I was so, I was happy for them when they won the last game. But I thought you know what, our goal, we wrote on the board, our goal was win state, take state. And we won it, and I thought I would be happy. I was relieved. I was so glad that season was over. I felt so bad. I just thought, so I've worked my whole career for this moment, and what a letdown. Wow. And I learned a great deal. In fact, I got so frustrated, I left coaching not long after that. Philosophically, it crushed me because I don't know how God implanted that seed in my heart, but I've always felt like if you make better people first, you make better players. And so I guess where I'm going with this is we have to decide that we're going to be, I think, mentors. We have to, I listened to I've lost my mind. Are you Brock or Sean? Brock, thank you. I apologize. I've only known you since you were like one. But so the idea that Mitch would stay involved in these young men's lives, that requires sacrifice. That requires engagement. As a leader, we have to be willing to stand up for what we think is right. We have to be willing to walk in to someone else's life. And if you want to plant that seed, if you want to be a mentor and you want to change people, I look at me as a dad because I think leadership is all about being a great parent too. My dad, I see my daughter's a first year teacher, and we were talking a while ago about the lack of discipline in public schools in today's time. So my dad, I guess as a parent, you could say, you know what, my number one goal as a family leader is to make my child happy. Or my number one goal is to prepare my child for a life's journey of being a leader. And man, that can be a big divide. And I think that part of being a leader is you have to be so focused on your goal. You have to be so focused on your journey that you can discern that. And my dad, I don't think he ever really worried about making me happy. I don't think it ever crossed his mind. My dad decided, you know what, if I'm going to err on one side of that fence or the other, it will be on the prepared side. So just for one example, and then we're going to cover some stuff. But one example is we would always go to the barbershop on Saturday. Big town of Cleveland, we'd go to Wayne's. Dad would get a fresh haircut, no shaves on Saturday, they were too busy. And I would usually get a trim. And if I behaved, I was 6 or 7 years old because I remember it. If you did good, if you sat still, Wayne would offer you a nickel or a big double-sized piece of bubble gum. You could choose. So that particular day, I took the gum. We get all the way back home, which is a couple of miles, and Dad said, hey, what'd you go with, gum or nickel? I said, gum. I mean, come on. And he goes, did you tell Wayne thank you for that? You know, Dad, I don't think I did. You better go tell him thanks. I mean, it's a long way to town. I was a little bitty. I was probably first or second grade. And he goes, well, you need to go ahead and take off. I go, I'm not taking it. And I mean, my mom loved me. She wanted me to be happy, and she would never let me walk that far away from home at that age. My dad, he didn't care. So anyway, long story short, I cried on the whole, I was about to throw up. I was so upset, so embarrassed. I walk into Wayne's. I think looking back, Wayne knew I was coming, if you get my drift. I think Dad had called him. So I walk in and I'm bawling. Wayne gives me a hug. I'm embarrassed. Thank you, Wayne. I'm sorry. It was so, at that time in my life, it was the worst thing ever. I mean, it was horrible. And my dad picks me up. And anyway, I learned that day to tell people thank you when they get anything. Now, was that a great method of leadership? I don't know. Was it effective? Effective. Yes. To this day, I mean, if I get punched in the nose, I'll tell the guy thank you. That's just what my dad instilled me. So you guys rattle off some words that you think when we speak of leadership. We've had some guys give examples. Give me, so what I think the favorite one I've heard so far is Mitch was willing to engage. I think because we love, anybody like to sit on the bench? I mean, as a leader, it's so much easier to just sit on the bench and not dive into the game, man. Because if you walk into somebody else's mess, that can be gross. That can be troubling. That can be difficult. So what else? What are some characteristics of good leaders? Come on.
Humble.
Oh, humble. That's 2 weeks. So next week will be a little bit of character and integrity. Humility will be week 3. What else?
Genuine.
Yeah, you got to be real, right? I tell you what, in today's world, you walk into a football locker room, kids can figure out a phony quicker than anything. So you have to be yourself. You have to use those gifts that God gives you. And one thing I think I'll go with now before I got to get through some slides here. The video killed me, man. So, on regard to being real, as a young head coach, I started coaching in 1996, and I wanted, coaches are copycats. So we want, if you run a play on Friday and you score a touchdown, the very next Friday, the team you're playing will run the same play you ran against you. They all cheat like that. It ticks me off. So, but you have, I wanted to follow, I went and, back in that day, Bill Snyder was huge. He had turned K-State around. Tom Osborne had won a national championship, and they were all doing it right. So I wanted to go, I know I should go follow Barry Switzer, right? But I wanted to go and mimic guys who were doing it right. Guys who had consistency, guys who were graduating players, different things like that. So I went to K-State, I went to Nebraska, I went to OU. And what I found out about myself, I thought, wow, what better guy for me to be than Bill Snyder? So I tried to be Bill Snyder. I'm not Bill Snyder. I wanted his talents. I wanted his leadership ability. But God didn't wire me that way. I would stand in front of my team and try to be someone that I wasn't. And it was just going, that's not you. So we have to be very real. What's another? Give me one more. Affirming. So positive, telling people they can do it, pointing out their strengths, and reminding them they've got the ability. Is that affirming? Yeah, I would agree with you. All right, let's go over. So I wrote down a couple of things. With regard to leadership, that in a roundabout way, when I got you. And my apologies here for this setup. So I thought there's kind of 3 areas that we would talk about, not all tonight. I underlined character, humility, integrity, servant leadership, and decision making, because those are the ones that I'm going to talk about next 3 or 4 weeks. But under your personal development, because we have to be our own leaders too. So we have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to try to get better. So I put character, commitment, courage, risk-taking, dependence on God, humility, integrity, obedience, priorities, purpose, self-discipline, values, vision. So all those are important, I think. But as a leader, we have to be a very relational people. So we have to be encouraging, we have to exhort, we have to be, build personal relationships, and we certainly have to be a servant. That's where I'm headed. And there's also skills. So all these guys that are going to be your teachers, we're going to talk a lot about these. Can I go to the next slide? All right, would somebody who has a Bible or a phone app look up Luke chapter 6 really quick? Verses 39 through 49. Somebody read that for me. Brent, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read it, guys. So, starting at verse 39, it says, Then Jesus gave the following illustration. Can one blind person lead another? Won't they both fall into a ditch? Students are not greater than the teacher, but the student who is fully trained will become like the teacher. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying, Friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye, when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite. First get rid of the log in your own eye, then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. A good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. A tree is identified by its fruit. Figs are never gathered from thorn bushes, and grapes are not picked from bramble bushes. A good person produces good things from the treasury of a good heart, and an evil person produces evil things from the treasury of an evil heart. What you say flows from what is in your heart. So why do you keep calling me Lord, Lord, when you don't do what I say? I will show you what it's like when someone comes to me, listens to my teaching, and then follows it. It is like a person building a house who digs deep and lays the foundation on solid rock. When the flood waters rise and break against that house, it stands firm because it is well built. But anyone who hears and doesn't obey is like a person who builds a house right on the ground, without a foundation. When the floods sweep down against that house, it will collapse into a heap of ruins.
Okay, go to the next slide. So Jesus appoints his 12 disciples, and he kind of mentions what is required for those who want to be leaders. So The Bible, to me, is full of great examples of leadership. I mean, it's full of the whole New Testament. But there's really not a ton of verses on like leaders. So I thought this was a great scenario. So Jesus shares with them what he requires and how important that spiritual and moral depth their character really is. And I want to move that direction. Tonight I wanted to share those. I had 3 great videos for you. And we'll get to them next week, I promise. But we're going to head on into spiritual character. I love the part in the one verse where it says, verse 45, I think, a good person produces good things from the treasury of a good heart. And as leaders, that's where it's got to start. So Jesus' first words out of his mouth to his apostles were, character counts. You've got to have great character. Your heart's got to be in the right spot. And I go back to that season I mentioned to you about when the coach wasn't doing things the right way. He was using profanity. He was teaching kids to cut corners on their grades, all those kind of things. Now, we won the game at the end of the year. We won that last game and we wanted to win. But I don't know that we really led the way we were supposed to lead. So I guess I would go, the next thing I would share with you, we want to wrap up at 10 till, Kevin, is that about right? And Troy's heard this one before, but we have to make sure as leaders that we use the right scoreboard. You know, and it's not just at the end of the game. The fans look at the score, at Jinx, and Jinx wins 21-7. It's been a great game. Our team won. But as a football coach, I don't look at that. I look at the film. How hard do we play? How do we do our assignment? I mean, I critique things a whole lot differently. And Jesus is the same way. He wants to look at our heart, and we want to make sure that our character's in the right spot. Next slide, please. Could you read that for me?
Yeah. Matthew 20 through 27. Says, Then the mother of James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to Jesus with her sons. She knelt respectfully to ask a favor. What is your request, he asked. She replied, In your kingdom, please let my 2 sons sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left. But Jesus answered by saying to them, You do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering that I'm about to drink? Oh, yes, they replied. We are able. Jesus told them, You will indeed drink from my bitter cup, but I have no right to say who will sit on my right or my left. My Father has prepared those places for the ones he has chosen. When the 10 other disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. But Jesus called them together and said, You know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must become a slave.
Yeah, thank you. So we have a great example. The first verse that we read in Luke, Jesus had just chosen the 12, not long before that. In this particular scenario, Jesus is fixing to die. He's in his last days. And he cautions his disciples on how important it is that you understand you have to be a servant. Now, society told them that what? You need to be the boss. You need to lord over people. And Jesus is saying, no. So with all the verses that I looked up, this is the second time that Jesus spoke directly about leadership. There's not a ton of verses in the Bible that just straight out talk like that. So in football terms, we would say the guys are sitting around the locker room having locker room talk. That Coach Trimble, he's a blowhard. Guys, they run the tar out of us, but it's so it's a little bit of negative speak. So the apostles are having a little locker room talk here. And Jesus comes in really quick and sets them straight. And he kind of talks about servant leadership. Now, he lives his whole life as a servant. And his example is who we should always go by. Jesus said, It is not this way among you. But whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave. So hit the next slide. So according to Jesus, as leaders, we're supposed to help others become heroes. I didn't know what word to use, but if you look at Jesus, and again, I've got a couple of videos that are way better than you listening to me. But our mission as a leader is to elevate those people around us. Jesus, when he came to earth, he had a mission. And he never lost track of that mission. As leaders, we have to figure that out. Mitch used a slide last week of the integrated life and the compartmentalized life. Well, as leaders, we have to have Christ in the center of everything we do. The fourth note there, those who follow Jesus' teaching and live in a personal relationship with him are made into better people than they could ever become without Jesus' leadership. And I thought that just resonated with me. So this is what servant leadership is all about. So next slide real quick. 2 points I want to make and then we'll wrap up. A leader's character counts more than any other factor of leadership. And obviously Jesus is the best thing the best example that we can have. And his example is servant leadership. So I thought I would use a couple of my personal examples. And I don't know if this is right or wrong, but this is what we did. So one of the things I always want to do, and I really believe this, people may doubt what you say to them, but they will never doubt what you do. Your actions always speak louder than words. So one of my weird things I always did is I always drove the bus to the game. We pulled up to Booker T one night. I was in the second bus. It's a varsity game. And the first bus is asking for directions to where to park. And so I'm sitting there. Well, this other parking attendant walks up and I open the window. He said, "Man, you look a lot like the head coach of Jinx." I said, I get that all the time. And he goes, "Well, I know the head coach of Jinx is not driving a bus." I said, "Well, yeah, he does sometimes." So anyway, I wanted my other coaches to know that I was on the same end of the road that they were. Now, could I be spending my time a better way? Maybe. But there was no member of my staff that thought, well, you know what, this guy is aloof. This guy's, I wanted, I took that, I took that personality test where you decide whether you're a red or a green or a yellow, what's the name of that?
Discerning.
Yeah. So I'm a 9%er, okay? I thought, I know you're gonna be shocked, but I'm weird. I'm a combination color. I have no red, which I thought I would. I have no red. I lead from the back of the boat. I'm a weird guy. So if you can imagine a rowboat full of people, I'm the guy in the back yelling, "Let's go guys, let's go guys." But I have a paddle in my hand and I'm rowing the boat with them. It's the weirdest thing. I would have never believed it. So I say all that to say this. I would always stay after the games, help clean up the locker room. I would always go after the games and help do the laundry. I hate laundry too, by the way, man. And don't tell my wife that I know how to do it. But I always wanted to lead by example. And I think those actions are, give me one more slide. So this is going to be your homework. I've got everybody a copy of this, okay? So there's a hard copy here. So take this home with you. I put a couple of examples for your personal reflection and your small group reflection. So what I would like for you to do is Brandon or some of the guys, they're up here, grab you a copy and spend some time this week reflecting on the most important characteristics you believe a leader should possess. We talked about Jesus' character. I mean, obviously that's going to be a good place to go. But I want to take this a little more in depth. I want to apply it to our lives each and every day. As a husband, as a church leader. Thank you, dear. And we're going to have some more candid discussion, especially if I can get these videos to play next week. So next week we will begin our class. So each team in here, how many teams do we have, Kevin? 7, 8? Sure. We have 7 or 8 teams. I would love for each team to make a brief comment or discuss this homework project before we start into next week's class, which will start on integrity, okay? So spend a little time on the home. This is the entire set of class notes, as well as the reflection questions. And then also, the very last page, I put some Coach Trimble free of charge leadership ideas. Okay, locker room development. So would you read that and just be ready to reflect on that? Kevin, I'm out of gas.
Well done.
Allan's going to be with us for the entire month of March. So guys, keep coming back. Group leaders.
You say may not come back.
Well, I think they'll come back. Group leaders, get with your groups. If you're not in a group, come find Drew or Dale or myself, and we will find you in a group really, really soon. Let me pray for us, and we'll be dismissed. God, we come to you with minds that are open and hearts that are open, and also minds and hearts that are grateful. And so we ask, with this posture, we come to you and say, God, change us, form us into being the men that you have called us to be, the men that you need us to be, the Christian leaders that your church thrives with. And God, we just look to you for all of this, that you are our ultimate leader. You are who we come to. You are our guide. So Father, we ask that you lead us always as we seek to pass on great Christian leadership to our families, to our homes, to our jobs, to everyone we come in contact with. God, we thank you for the example of Jesus, for the power of your Spirit, and for your guidance always. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
See you guys next week.
Thanks, Gil.
I am not going to be there. Yeah, I got a long retreat. What's going on?